Okay,
Yes.
great. So we are now live and being recorded.
Great. Yes, I think it's tell us about your book. It is also very interesting to talk about it.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I was willing to avoid the topic, but I guess it's relative to our what we were going to discuss today anyway. So the book is called Acceptance: The Language of Recovery, and it
Mm-hmm.
focuses a great deal on the grieving process. Um, I feel that I've discovered some flaws in the Kubler-Ross model of grieving, and I've tried speaking to professionals about it, and they don't seem to want to get on board with me with it. I hear them saying, "Well, the Kubler-Ross model is not linear," and that's their excuse for its shortcomings. That it's not linear. Well,
Yes.
my version of the grieving process is linear. It's very straight, direct, predictable. Um, and it's very clear. And you might have to grieve the same thing many times, but each time you grieve, you reach higher levels of acceptance. And so
Yeah.
the Kubler-Ross model of grieving says that it goes in five stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, it's missing a crucial stage, and it confuses emotions with stages. So my version of the grieving process says denial, bargaining, which contains all of your anger, all of your depression. If you have any anger, any depression, it's part of the bargaining stage of grieving. And then
Yes.
when it becomes overwhelming to the point where you can't hold it any longer, you enter the third stage of grieving, surrender. In surrender, we let go. We finally accept that we can't have what we want, and we let go of the control we have over our emotions, and the emotions overwhelm us, and then we gain emotional intelligence, which leads us to the fourth stage of grieving, acceptance. Now, if you've never been attached to something, then there's nothing to grieve. Like if I told you the third moon of Pluto was blue and you always thought it was red, but you didn't care one way or another, then you wouldn't need to grieve that. But anything that you're attached to is something that you may potentially need to grieve at some point in your life. And that's kind of along the lines of the topic today about how, you know, breaking addictions or changing behaviors is really the same process. It's the grieving process. It's learning how to identify something and let it go. And there's many different ways we can approach that, but in each case, just making a decision to change isn't enough because we're attached, and this,
Yeah.
you know, and the
Mm-hmm.
subconscious mind is going to want to drag us back into old behaviors long after we've decided we wanted to let it go. And that's why so many people will say, "That's it, I'm done smoking," and then 2 days later they're still smoking because it's the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is throwing constant, cravings and excuses why you can go back to the behavior, even though consciously you already know you don't want to do this anymore. Well, that's not enough. You have to hit bottom. You have to get to a point where I don't, it's no longer an option in any way that you have an emotional and a psychological shift in your consciousness where it's like I can't do this anymore. And smoking is no longer an option. And so that's basically step one in recovery. The surrender stage of grieving and step one in recovery are the same thing. It's finally coming to a point where you realize I have a problem and I need help. So you can break the pattern after you hit surrender, but now changing the pattern to something healthier requires more effort. Now you have to,
Yeah.
you know, now you got to
Mm.
replace those old thoughts with new thoughts of some kind, those old behaviors with new behaviors. Instead of turning to cigarettes, you turn to fresh fruit and vegetables, to jogging, to, something. You can't just get rid of one behavior without replacing it with a new behavior. And if you don't have some mode of recovery, then you enter into a stage of recovery that we call dry drunk, where you've broken the habit, but now you're all pissed off because you're not dealing with the reasons why you had the habit. What was driving you to escape? What was driving you to use smoking as a crutch, to use drinking or drugs or gambling or sex? What was driving you to have that addiction in the first place? Because the addiction is not the problem, it's a symptom of the problem.
Yeah, exactly. This is really very powerful. It's attachment is really a big thing, you know. That is everything. It applies to anything, to everything that we are doing every day. And many people, they feel that they have to detach from something. But then the effort, the actions that they have to take, that's why there is a need of reprogramming. As you see, you cannot do anything if you cannot um put in new beliefs if you don't delete the old things. You have to make space. So it's really very interesting, and I'm sure this book will help a lot of people. But I know how no, I don't want to use the word difficult, because that is not supposed to be the word that we have to implant in our subconscious mind. But this is really very challenging. So what you do, how you impact people, is really powerful. So I'm really looking forward to the book, and we can discuss more about it. And I think we have to dig deeper, talk about more about attachment and how to detach from those behavior. And today's topic is really very interesting. Changing behaviors and breaking addiction. It's just, as you mentioned, it's just the same process. And
Right.
people, how they know that it's just the same process.
Right. And there's whole massive communities of spiritual people.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got part of the picture. They understand that there is this spiritual component to life that many people neglect, that we're not really in tune to, this spiritual dimension of life. But yoga and crystals and horoscope, those are just small pieces of the pie. That's not really the answer to all your problems. I don't care if you're a yoga master. That doesn't mean you're going to become self-aware. You could be a complete jerk and a yoga master at the same time. Recovery is a process of identifying all of your character defects, all of your resentments, all of the things that make you incomplete, or inauthentic. And that's really the point of recovery systems, is to help you become more authentic, more your natural self. And you're right, attachments. I mean, we have so many of them, thousands and thousands of attachments. I'm very attached to my phone, and it's not because it's such an amazing phone. It's because I have invested a lot of time and effort and energy into the habits and behaviors that involve a phone. The phone is my go-to boredom relief. It doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing. I could be in church. I could be, at one of my kids' functions, whatever. I turn to the phone and I start flipping through social media as a means of escape, rather than dealing what's happening in the present moment. Now I'm tuned into this phone. And so anytime that I forget my phone somewhere, leave it in the car or leave it at home, I experience a panic attack. Oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
left my phone. That shows just
Yes.
how attached I am. And that's not healthy,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yes. And the thing is, it's the convenience. Is it because we feel we believe that our phone give us the convenience that we need,
Yeah.
but without being aware that it can also be the source of other stuff, other negativities. And because if you are convenient doing something, you unconsciously do it for a long time and it becomes a habit and forgetting all the important things. And it's like, okay, because our subconscious mind love to have the familiar things, the convenient in
Yeah.
life. And that's why, because it's convenient, we do it unconsciously and without really realizing, are we spending our time the right way? Not forgetting what we have to prioritize first. And that is just the one example of being attached to things that are convenient. And then it applies to, before we know it, we are already addicted to our phones. And then we spend a lot of time and then forgetting, oh, I still have this important task that I have to do. And that is the same thing with addiction. It's a small thing and then becomes big, and then we do it unconsciously until we realize that that's something, that attachment that lead to addiction becomes a habit, a pattern that can destroy our goal in life, our main purpose. And before someone or before people get to the point, it's damage already done, and it's really hard to delete all those things and
Yeah.
to, yeah, to change the behavior. The subconscious mind don't like change because of fear. What if? What are the inconvenience that will takes place when you have to break the pattern and you have to change the behavior? And this is really very interesting topic. I love that the topic that we are going to discuss now. It's, yes.
So yeah, with the attachment stuff, addiction is layers of attachment,
Yes, I agree to that.
you know.
Yes.
And so let's say, for me, alcohol was one of my active addictions. When I stopped drinking the alcohol, uh, and I entered into dry drunk state, now
Mm.
all of my attachments were exposed. All of
Mm.
my unresolved issues were exposed because I was using the alcohol to treat my unresolved issues. I was,
Yes.
trying to get peace in my life. Well, to gain peace in your life, you need emotional intelligence and not, chemical treatments or escape. And so, there was this whole set of behaviors that I have that I had to individually identify and change each one of them so that the obsession to drink was no longer predominant in my life. I have a lot of real codependency issues. And so
Mm-hmm.
codependency was driving my alcoholism. And then, ironically, when I was active in my alcoholism, I was narcissistic. I was only thinking of myself when I was in my active addiction. And, I was also narcissistic in the dry drunk stage of recovery because I was blaming everybody else and everything else for my issues. And slowly I had to come around and identify not only my codependent problems, but my narcissistic problems, one at a time and heal those things so that I could, on a broader scale, treat my alcoholism. So
Mm.
alcoholism it's not a
Yeah.
substance issue, it's a thinking disorder, and it's a whole collection of behaviors that are damaging to me.
Mm.
Although if I didn't have those damaging thoughts and behaviors, then I wouldn't have any desire to drink, you
Yeah.
know. And I'm not saying that the drinking is wrong, but if you do it with any amount of regularity, you're treating your traumas is what it comes down to.
Exactly. Listening to you, it's the kind of It's kind of testimony. You mentioned that you were being narcissistic, but one thing of being a narcissist, they will never admit it. And now you are making a testimony that makes it so powerful, because a narcissist, an active narcissist, will never accept, always that they believe that they are doing the right thing. And now, listening to you, this is the tool itself. This is the tool itself. When people realize, oh, it's not working anymore. This behavior, these patterns that I am doing for a long period of time is not working anymore. So I have to accept it. So there was already an acknowledgement, understanding about what you are doing in your life and how it is affecting other people. So there is understanding and an acceptance. And then, as you said, if there is an acceptance, the next thing is you can let go, because you know exactly what is going on and what are those behaviors and habits that are not serving you. So this is really powerful. If people get it, what you just told a while ago is already a very effective tool. They understand it. If they apply it, thank you so much for that, Chef.
Yeah, clinically, they would disagree with me on a lot of things. They have much more elaborate descriptions and they've got a lot more words and a lot more terminology to choose from, but I don't find any of those things necessary. I think it's very simple.
No,
Narcissists are people who have high levels of denial, which
exactly.
denial itself is a lack of emotional intelligence. And so the less emotional intelligence you have, the more denial you accumulate and the less aware you are of how things actually are. And so you're right. When people are active in their addictions, they don't have a problem. As a matter of fact, it's pretty common.
No.
The normal response is, I don't have a problem, you do. You challenge somebody, you say, hey, I think you're drinking too much. I think you're exercising too much. I think whatever the problem is. And they point out your flaws. They're not ready to accept it. Denial is
Exactly.
like a reflex. Instantly, you go into the bargaining and you tell people the lies you've been telling yourself that excuse the behavior. Oh, I do it because of this, and I do it because well, you're lazy and you never clean the house and you never come home on time, and that's why I'm drinking on because you make me so upset. You know,
Yeah. Yes,
and
people can only relate and accept it and use it if they understand. But if they don't understand, they think nothing is wrong with them. They are enjoying what they are doing, or there is no other choice, or yeah, that is the denial in there.
yeah,
That's why they cannot do anything about something they don't understand and they don't want to accept. As simple as that, but it's too complicated for some people.
yeah, and that's a very good point, which brings up something else. Relationships are addictions too. And I say
Exactly.
all addictions are trauma bonds because they're a response to trauma. And people stay in toxic relationships because they don't think they have any choice. Oh, I'm going to lose
Mm-hmm.
this. I'm going to lose the house. I'm going to lose the car. I'm going to lose income. I'm going to lose, the children. And they take a look at what they're going to lose, and they don't look at the harm that the relationship is causing, and that if they weren't in that situation, they could take better care of themselves and have all the things that they want. And it's just fear. It's a fear-based response. You get beat
Yes.
down and your self-esteem gets destroyed. People gaslight each other a lot in toxic relationships. They chip away at each other's confidence, talking about, well, you did that and you did that and you did that. And slowly you start to think that you're not worthy of anything better than what you're receiving.
Yes.
And it takes
Mm-hmm.
sometimes years to recover from that mentality. Once you've been stuck in a toxic relationship long enough, it could take you years of recovery before you get to a point where you recognize your true value. And who knows? In some cases, you may never. It depends on how severe it is.
Yeah, that is really true. That is true. Because that is a cycle, and the longer someone do it, the more difficult it is to really change, to really realize they don't see the difference anymore. It's like, okay, this is it. This is the reality of life. So I'm just not lucky enough that I have this, but there is no other choice. And if they think of changing the situation, yeah, the fear is there. What if I have the worst thing? What if I have financial shortage? And yeah, they are afraid of more things going wrong instead of um seeing the other side of the point. It could go right, it could go better, but then they don't know that. That's why they have to focus on the mental picture, how they have to feel if the things will go the other way. But the easiest thing is, because it's a pattern, it's the usual things that they do. It's like, it's the self-talk, the inner self-talk is always okay. It's always the same. It's always the same people. You start in a relationship, it's always the same. So you better stay, because you already know it is hard, but you already know the pain. You already know the suffering. But if you change, you don't know. That's why people stay in the at the points, because they know it's familiar. And even if it's not really convenience, it's familiar. And our subconscious mind is really pulling us away from something that is not familiar
Yeah, well,
because of fear.
I think of things in terms of ego and awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I have an ego. I am not my ego, but everything that I identify as self is part of this matrix of ego. There is no self. It's all an illusion. The real me is the same as everybody else. It's pure
Mm-hmm.
awareness, pure peace.
Yes.
And so if I can
Mm-hmm.
connect with my peace, then I can identify and heal my ego. And like you were saying, is people get in these situations where it's familiar, and ego seeks comfort, and ego seeks ease and predictability, and it wants everything to be good all the time. That's not reality. Reality doesn't function like that. Reality means highs and lows and difficult times. And, the unfortunate thing is that whenever you go to change a behavior, that's when you start to get the challenges. Now it's going to be like, oh, you get in, you say, all right, I'm going to quit smoking. And then you get into a fender bender. Oh, that's it. And you go back to smoking because that is a trauma, and you respond to the trauma the way you always responded to the trauma. You need some type of relief, and you start smoking again. All right, well, you quit a few weeks later, and now your daughter gets expelled from school. Oh, and you start smoking again. So,
Mm-hmm.
life challenges us whenever we decide we're going to change a behavior. It's going to keep throwing things at us that will give us excuses to return to an old behavior. And we need to weather those things, because what you're really experiencing is not, reality, it's withdrawals. Those problems were always there. Those difficulties were always there. They were never an excuse to use substances and behaviors to escape. But it's just the ego trying to comfort itself, trying to find that easier, softer way to deal with life. And we're ignoring all the harm that the behavior causes while we're using these things to treat the traumatic stuff that's happening in our lives.
Yeah, that is really true. And it reminds me of what Eckhart Tolle said. You are not your mind. You are not your mind. There is more to that. There is, people call it a higher self, or whatever they want to call it, the opposite of the ego. But there is always at least two in our head always communicating, and if you listen carefully and really filter them, then it's there. The rules are there, but how to choose? Who will choose? Is it the ego or the higher self or whatever it is, whatever people call it, is the entity that is developed from trauma or whatever it is. It doesn't matter how you call it, there is always something in our head, always two things. And I always say that, oh, there is the monkey in my head. It's like I have to tame the monkey, and I cannot put the monkey, oh, I cannot kill it because it's a part of my, it's a part of my subconscious, whatever you call it. But I have to communicate with it. The moment I realize that monkey is taking over, and I can take over, there is always the higher power that is say, okay, you monkey, you are not doing well. Just set aside and let me take over, and we will see. But if you are an autopilot and being unconscious, being unaware, that monkey will always do the thing.
You're
And
right.
that will, yeah.
Right, right. And many people are just in that automatic mode. The monkey's always in charge, you know?
Yes.
And when you get into this, you start developing the higher self, it's sometimes difficult to comprehend. You're right. You are not your mind. Most people identify with their mind as being
Yes.
who they are, and that's not true. Ego is
Mm-hmm.
logic, will, and desire. So all of your thoughts are part of the matrix of ego. Spirit, they say we are comprised of three parts: mind, body, and spirit. Well, spirit is the awareness, it's the consciousness. And there's a single field of consciousness, and we all have the exact same consciousness within us. And it's a peaceful, quiet observer. It has no thoughts.
Yeah.
Never does your consciousness need to think. And when you're not thinking and you can be fully present, that's when you experience the intuitive aspect of life, where things happen without thought and they happen effortlessly. And who knows this best is people who are big into video games. When you get into
Mm.
gameplay, you're not thinking, you're just responding to what's happening on the video. And it's, your best efforts just flow from you.
Yeah.
You're not sitting there thinking, I need to shoot this guy. No, it's just that guy, and this and this and this, and it's all this pattern recognition and automatic response. And you know, it's really peaceful for a lot of people to get into these states, provided you're not carrying anger or resentment with you. Every time there's something that happens that you don't enjoy. So let me
Yeah.
check on something. See if we're
Mhm.
getting any comments on the post. Nope, no comments yet.
No, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's good also if we are open for discussion as well from questions from our viewers, right? So
Yes.
that is, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't give anybody much warning here, so I wasn't expecting anybody to show up. Now I wanted to talk specifically about your process, and we've touched on this in the past. What are some of the traumas that you use a process called rapid transformation therapy? What are some of the
Yes.
most common traumas that you're helping people deal with your treatments?
It's the most common is, childhood trauma. Anything that happens in the past, it affects the present life, and that is more, people are, no matter how they try to hide it in the outside world, when you get to talk to them, to really talk to them in a deeper sense, uh, we are all the same. We experience trauma in different levels, but the most common is, what they believe, what the environment are telling them. It became a program, and then forgetting their real value, and then they carry that whatever they hear from their parents. For example, they are not being appreciated as a child, and they are not being good enough. They are not doing good at school, and then they develop that thoughts that they will never excel, they will never succeed, and it's always the same. And then they seek comfort when they get into relationship or when they get a job, and because they have already the belief that they are not good enough, that not I am not enough syndrome. That is the most common, and it applies to everybody, men, women, all ages, that I am not enough syndrome. And it is caused by many factors. It might not, yeah, it is just a short sentence, but it is really big. I am not enough. I'm not good enough as a child. I'm not good enough as a partner, as a coworker, and as a parent. And it goes on and on until they realize that they need help, because those trauma, yeah, you can relate it, because it becomes they will seek some comfort from other things, and they become addiction, they become addict to something because they want to compensate what they did not have. But I am talking about really a very general situation, but because it's not so easy to point a specific situation, because I have told you one of my client, this is really a very serious topic. I don't even want to talk about it because she is a friend of mine. Um, but she's not alone. A very difficult childhood. Now, she is a very bright person. She is beautiful inside and out. But because of the trauma, her father was really abusing her in all kinds of mental, emotional, physical, all kinds of abuse. But she told me, I thought it was my only worth, that it was me. Until she is now 47. So she ran away from home, looking for a relationship in order to feel validated, but always attracted to wrong people.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's a kind of addiction. And until now, a lot of things happened. Nothing good, until she believed she could never be a good person because she is even dangerous to her kids. She believed that.
Yeah.
So that is one of the situations that I am handling, that is also very challenging for me, because I myself, I have also trauma during my childhood. But the thing is, it's up to us to choose, but we have to reach to the breaking point, like you said, the rock bottom. You
Yeah.
have to choose. You have to choose when you don't have any other choice at all. Are you going to stay at the bottom, or are you going to use the power, the strength that you still have to kick from wherever, just kick until you get back to the surface? Because we all have the same, you know, different level of traumas, but the same emotions. And I get so attached to this when I talk about traumas, because I am also really at I feel every client, it's like I am watching a live movie, and I also have my own trauma. And I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody, but it is I realized that we all have the power to change. We all have the power to choose. Like you choose to be here. You choose to talk about stuff that we are not proud of because we know that there is nothing to be ashamed of. We are lucky that we came to the point to realize that we had to change, and we did. And we are still on the process, of course, but we are on the right path
Right.
at the
Well,
process.
this is pretty significant. You touched on something really important, whether it's addiction or some other behavior. Um, Hitting bottom may be sufficient to break the pattern of the behavior. Okay, so I
Mm-hmm.
know lots of people who
Yeah.
are no longer drinking because they hit bottom. But what you put into your system to follow that up is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, most people, just change addictions with things like 12-step recovery. 12-step recovery is a healthy addiction. It's something that I need to have in my life. I go through horrible withdrawals when I stop using the recovery system in my life. So I've leveled up, but you talked about we've got a guest.
Oh,
Uh,
we got Dave.
yep. And so,
Right.
hi, Dave. Thanks for joining us. Not sure
Hello, Dave. Welcome.
how much of this you have followed, but you had mentioned earlier about attraction, and there's a lot of people who are aware of this thing called the law of attraction. And what I don't think they're aware of is we cannot attract past our traumas. That one of the laws of karma clearly states that we will repeat the history that we've experienced until we learn the lesson and move on. Unless you adapt, unless you make an amend, unless you change a behavior, you're going to continue to attract people, places, and things of like dysfunction that are going to teach you how to evolve, or unfortunately get sicker is the other option. Rarely do people just maintain, but that does happen. The main point is the law of attraction is very real. It's always
Yeah.
working, but it only works to the effect of how well you're healed from your traumas, or your hopefully your lack of trauma. If you've experienced very few traumas in your life, then you're one of the fortunate people that can probably attract at very high levels because you don't have self-doubt and shame and fear and worry. If you grew up in a healthy atmosphere and didn't experience a lot of negativity, chances are you're very good at attracting things in your life.
Yes, very interesting. Very interesting, Jeff. I want also to add what is the most important that I've learned from breaking the behaviors and breaking the addiction is that one word is understanding. It's really power. You know, if you understand the situation that it's not your fault. It's not somebody else's fault. It happens. Things are happening every second of the day. It doesn't stop. It's like your mind. You are thinking 24/7, constantly, nonstop. But then you have to understand that you have the power to control, to choose your thoughts, your actions. And then what happens to you doesn't have the it doesn't have the definition of you. It doesn't have to be the definition of you.
Right.
It Yeah, you have to understand that because some people like, oh, it's because of the society, it's because of the partner, it's because of the parent. It's they're always looking something or someone to blame instead of accepting the situation and understanding, why am I experiencing this? What do I get out from it? Because no matter how bad the situation is, there is always something good that comes out to it. Maybe you don't know at that moment, but like you said, attraction. So it's all, everything is energy flowing constantly. And as what I have understood, attraction is what kind of thoughts you are thinking, what kind of energy you are spreading, and that's what you attract. Because you cannot fake what you feel, what you genuinely feel. If you said, I'm happy, I'm okay, but then deep inside you are full of negativity, unconsciously the negativity will multiply. But we are most, yeah, we are, sometimes we're unaware of it. That's why.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, and firmly believe everyone is in denial about something. You can even be aware of the thing that you're in denial about and still be in denial. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I am
Yes.
aware of the fact that I have a sugar addiction and it's caused a lot of problems in my life. I'm really severely addicted to sugar, but I'm not emotionally aware of how much damage it's caused in my life. Otherwise, I would find other things to consume. I would stop it. And so I haven't quit that. I haven't hit bottom with my sugar addiction. We have a guest here. I
Mm.
don't want to slight them. Dave, did you have
Yes.
questions or did you want to join in?
Well, I'm sorry I joined late. I wanted to catch it because the topic was pertinent for me. I don't have anything to add. I don't want to interrupt. I'm just glad to be a part of this. Did you have any specific questions? Like, did you want to talk about anything?
Yeah, well, I mean, the topic here is it's about addictions and behaviors and how the process for breaking these patterns is relatively the same. You say this topic is relative for you. In what way is it?
So, well, there's a lot going on in my life, particularly like right now, just struggling to get along with my partner. Um, Married 20 years, and we're going to counseling, and a lot of stuff is being uncovered. One of which is um, issues that we have tends to be a trigger for me to indulge my addictions.
Sure.
Like we'll say we'll fight, and then I'll be like, fuck this, I'm gonna go, drink or whatever. And it was a strategy I devised as a young man, desperate, stupid, and then I just never reevaluated it, right? Like I just do that. That's what I do now. And it's kind of a bad mechanism, I think, for addressing that emotional pain. So yeah, that's why it's pertinent for me today.
All right. Can I ask, are you ever able to cry?
Uh Privately, yeah.
Okay. So I've been in recovery on and off since 1989. And what I've learned about it is this. See, what you're describing are resentments. When your resentments come up, it fuels a desire to escape. It's one of the
Mm-hmm.
it's the absolute number one reason for relapse is these things called resentments.
Hmm.
So what's difficult and painful is that to break the resentments, we need to look at our part in it and grieve it. And so let's say your partner is accusing you of X number of things. Write all those things out. Every name she calls you, every accusation she has, and I'd like you to look at them in two different ways. First of all, understand that every accusation is a confession. So
Mm-hmm.
anything that she says to you is something that she has in herself that she's ashamed of. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the second thing is she's probably right about the majority of them, but that doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you deserve punishment. It doesn't mean that you're flawed and screwed up. It just means you're human. So if you can take a look at those qualities and accept them in yourself and go, you know what, I am a liar. I am a cheater. I do come home late from work. I do neglect her. I'm not considering how she feels about things. You know, I'm only thinking of myself. If you can identify and accept that you are flawed and then talk about that with somebody safe, then you'll find that those things, all of them have less power over you, and your desire to escape will diminish. And basically, I've just described in short the entire process of recovery is identifying our shortcomings, accepting them, and then through accepting them, you just naturally make an amends. You're compelled to be different now that you realize this is hurting me and I don't want to be like this anymore.
Mm.
Does that make some sense for you?
Yeah. There's it's clear you've thought a lot about this. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for the perspective.
Yeah. And thank you for joining us. Is there anything else? I mean, you want to get specific about it and maybe talk about one character defect she's accusing you of that you have a problem with?
No, I'm happy to keep it general. It's just yeah, for me it's I think I heard earlier somebody mentioned the concept of blame, right? Like it's somebody else's fault. And that's where, so like when I go through and assess, you know, what happened, what's the trying to figure the situation out and then identify a trigger, right? I guess there's the inclination to just insert the blame there. But really that's just the mechanism, right? It's not like um she did it to me, right? I ultimately did it to myself. Is the lesson there.
Well, ultimately, we're doing it to each other. So people with trauma trigger other people with trauma. But even if things didn't work out with you and your partner, if you don't heal the things that are causing those reactions from her, you'll attract somebody else that'll have the same issues with you. You know, that's
Yeah, that's
a
the
lot.
pattern. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's
it's
true.
the pattern that most yeah, it's true what you said, Jeff. We are unconsciously, if we are not healed, we, even if we find another relationship, if we know that there is something that we need to heal first in ourselves, it's still the same. So Dave, it's really thank you for joining and sharing your story, because many can relate. You're not alone.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, it's nice to know that you're not alone. Because sometimes it feels that way.
Yeah, I know. That's why we created a show. Just that, because true, yeah, we were like you. We are on the process. We are not perfect. That's why if we gather together, we gain more knowledge, and it's great to have you here, because we all have addictions. We all have flaws. And escape, that's the word. Sometimes we do things just to escape, but do we really need to escape? There is there is more effective way of dealing things rather than escaping. You know, like what Chef said, yeah, you have to really focus on you. Do you have to believe what other people say to you, what your partner said to you? Because it is escaping from the pain of what that person tell you, because your subconscious mind is telling you, okay, it's true, you're nothing, you start believing it if you hear it constantly. That's the thing. That's why we are going to talk about it, in order to really get to know ourselves, because no one knows us better. Not your partner, not your parents, not anybody else. If you said, oh, you are nothing, you are a piece of whatever, and it's up to you to believe it. If you realize that, oh, maybe I'm not doing well, that's why they say that about me, then that's the time that you need to do something. Break the habits, change the behavior, whatever it is. That's our goal in the show.
Yeah, I want to share a specific example of that. So I've been in a number of toxic relationships, and I'm remaining single intentionally because I want to deal with all of my junk before I even consider something else. I had two different women accuse me repeatedly of cheating. Well, I don't cheat. That's not one of the behaviors that I have. I come from a family. My parents stayed together through thick and thin. They fought a lot, but they stayed together. And so for me, cheating just wasn't an option. So if I use the formula that I described to you earlier, I have to, accept the fact that both these women who were accusing me had a nature or a desire to cheat themselves. And so that's why they were pointing it out in me. They have to have it in themselves in order to see it in me. But on one level, they were both actually right. Not because I physically cheated, but because I was thinking about other women. So on a mental level, on an emotional level, I wasn't fully present for them, and they could detect that. So I didn't have to physically cheat in order to be a cheater. And once I realized that that's what it was, that it's like I was being accused of something because I was just thinking about it. That was enough, and I was able to free myself from the burden of guilt, shame, and remorse, because I realized, well, I couldn't help myself. I wasn't in the right frame of mind. I didn't know myself that well. And, I am flawed. So yes, I do have that behavior that I was being accused of. And now it doesn't bother me. Whereas before, for a long time, it really upset me when I thought about how they were accusing me of that, because it's like, I'm not a cheater. I got defensive. Well, why was I defensive? Because I was thinking about it. So,
Yeah, because they say that every relationship, or all relationships that you have, is just a reflection of your relationship with yourself. That is, if you cannot find a good relationship unless you settle with your relationship with yourself. You have to investigate. You have to really realize, how am I dealing with myself? Because it starts with us. All relationships is just a reflection of how we look at ourselves. And we always find, oh, I will find that relationship because maybe I will become better. That's why I don't believe the old sayings like, oh, I have to find my other half.
right.
It's really, yeah, no, if you are a half looking for another half to become a whole, what if the relationship breaks, you become half again and then find another half again? Because there is no guarantee that someone will stay with you. If it's someone the source of your happiness, then you will always be searching forever. First, we have to be happy and contented with ourselves.
Right. It's that old Jerry Maguire thing. You complete me. Those are the words of a codependent who is describing their trauma bond. If somebody completes you, then you are trauma bonded to that person. If you're a complete person and then can share that completeness with somebody else, now you have a healthy relationship. And so often couples go through this process that's called enmeshment, where it's like, I need to know what you're doing and feel what you're feeling and think what you're thinking all the time. And that's not realistic or healthy. We need to be individuals with our own lives and then come together and share part of that with another person to have healthy balance.
That's exactly the thing. Sharing, not to fulfill the gap, of to fill the void, whatever you think you lack, and you looking at something from another person, so it's not going to work. Okay, Dave, do you want to say something?
No, I'm just soaking all this up. You guys sound like you've thought about this a whole bunch. So there's a lot of wisdom here. I appreciate your insights.
Great. Thank you again for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for hosting.
Yeah, we do this roughly every week on Sunday, but we skip a week. It's not really structured. It's kind of whatever happens, happens. But
Yes. You see, and Dave is here, so we never know who will join us next time. So we're just gonna do it like this.
May I make a
And
suggestion?
then, yes.
I saw the notification for this earlier today. If I had more warning, I could put it in my calendar and be ready for it.
Yeah.
I don't know how spontaneous y'all. I know it's kind of spontaneous, but it'd be easier for me to make it if I had some advance warning.
No, I agreed, and absolutely, and that's why we didn't have great expectations, because I think I only had 2 hours warning.
Mm-hmm.
It was very spontaneous, so we do plan to do more of these, and we'll start posting with some regularity so that people have warning. Thank you for the suggestion.
Yes. We
Hmm.
have to do that because it's also last minute when we decided to do this. But it's great. We have you, and we have a great topic. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for being here. Yeah.
So the last thing I wanted to touch on is part of your process. Apparently, it takes 21 days minimum to establish a new behavior, right? So up until that 21-day bridge, you're at risk of returning to the old behavior. And again, I attribute that to having to reprogram the subconscious mind, that the subconscious mind has just thousands of impulses that are going to want to drag you back into what's comfortable and familiar and easy and established. And you have to overcome that, and it takes more than willpower. It takes a real
Yeah.
belief that this is going to
Yes.
benefit me. And so many people relapse with their smoking after they've quit, and their drinking after they quit for a number of years. And I feel it's because they haven't really sufficiently replaced the old behaviors with new ones, new healthier behaviors. They just tried to sidestep it, or maybe put another addiction in its place.
Yeah. Actually, the mind need to have a specific timeline. So I said 21 days, but I would love that there will be a connection with my clients. Like that's why, because it's a lifetime process. Okay, I have to say 21 days. If you skip on the 10th day, go back to day one. So that's the rule of the mind. One of the rules of the mind. Maybe next time I can also share what I've learned about the rules of the mind, specific rules of the mind, why we have to be specific, not like we have to 21 days. It's really, we say the minimum, we put the label on it, but it's a lifetime process. And after 21 days, it doesn't mean that you have to just go back to be unaware. And well, actually, based on study by Marisa Peer, it is the minimum reprogramming, the time that we need to reprogram our mind. It's proven. It's a lot of tests done during the process. But there are lots of things that we can integrate, like meditation, like earthing, grounding, like one. Yeah, we don't have a lot of time, so I just mention one thing that I do, grounding. You can just walk like 3 to 5 minutes and every morning. If you have grass around the house, or if you can go to the forest, if you have running water, just soak your feet or walk barefoot. That is one way of, it's very effective to ground yourself. So after the 21 days of listening to the audio, do some meditation, like me time, 1 minute, 2 minutes, just build it up until you feel comfortable. Because if you said, okay, it's a lifetime process, then the mind will say, no, I don't have that. I have a lot of things to do. So we make it short, but after that, slowly, we slowly reprogram. This a continuous reprogramming of the mind, the meditation and the earthing and grounding. So the rest we have to talk about that next time.
Yeah, let's make that the continued discussion. We'll plan for next week, same time, and no specific guest, but let's talk about first hitting bottom, and then like you're talking about now is dealing with the withdrawals, you know, because those are two very different things. I mean, I want to give people tips on how they can actually drive themselves to the bottom that they're looking for. You know, you have to have this psychic change in your thinking where it's like, that's it. I've had enough. I can't do this anymore. And now that you've done that, these are the ways to cope with the subconscious mind that's going to want to drag you back into it. And, you know, I think between those two things, we might be able to help a lot of people just, you know, overcome difficulties in their lives.
That's brilliant. I think that taking the initiative, like you're saying, like you rather than wait for the bottom to happen, you're on your way. You just hit the fast forward button. Yeah, that sounds like mastery. Like, hey, I've been here before. I know how to run this course. Let's get over with.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly the point, Dave, because, you know, I've got many addictions and I've seen how I've overcome a number of them, and they always involve this moment, this shift in my awareness where I was just like, that's it, I can't do it anymore. Well, there were things that contributed to that. I had to see enough harm, I had to see enough negative, I had to have the consequences had to be great enough where I could finally admit I can't do this on my own. I need help with this. And then, you know, look to replace that that old behavior with something new, you know. And I mean, I've been addicted to so many different drugs, and I've got different sobriety and clean dates for all of them, and every one of them was different. It wasn't just a one stop, boom, I'm clean. I was clean off of cocaine, off of mescaline, off of opiates, off of marijuana, and off of alcohol, all on different dates. I had to hit 5 different bottoms before I, you know, was free from all of them. So, in any event, it's been a good meeting. I'm sure you got other things to do today, Selyna. I really appreciate your time, and we'll plan to do this again next Sunday.
It's my pleasure, Jeff. We do it every Sunday, and then we will talk in advance what topic are we going to discuss, and then we will give notice earlier. We can do that. Okay.
Sounds great.
This is a
Alright.
great show. Unexpected, unplanned, but great. Thank you, Dave. And we hope to see you next week, next Sunday.
Yeah, I look
Always
forward
welcome.
to.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Great Sunday.